And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
45! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Well, it's Groundhog Day again. Welcome to the next attempt of SpaceX to launch the Arabsat BADR-8 mission from Florida. We're looking at Falcon 9 34 minutes before liftoff, and so far it looks like they are proceeding with the countdown. My name is Adrian Bile. I'm a writer and host for NASASpaceflight, and we are here to answer your questions for the next 35 minutes before liftoff. Make sure to tag at NASASpaceflight in chat before you ask a question, so we see it in a handy tool in the back channel. And I am not alone today. And I also have the pleasure to introduce somebody for the first time on our stream. Trevor, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a great night for a Falcon 9 launch.
Good to have you here. It's your first time. Just as a heads up for everybody here, Trevor is a writer, editor, and now also a live stream commentator for NASASpaceflight. And also we have in the at the Cape for the next time for this launch, Mr. Max Evans. Max, how are you doing?
We got some fresh meat in the corner over there, meeting Trevor. Good morning, everybody. It is quite the blustery evening, almost morning now, here on the Space Coast of Florida. Hoping to see Falcon 9 take to the skies this evening.
Perfect. Let's hope for that. And let's start with the mission overview. Trevor, you want to give us a mission overview of what we are expecting to launch today?
Of course, so this is the Arabsat 7B mission, which is being launched atop the Falcon 9, as Adrian has said. The Falcon 9 will place it into geostationary transfer orbit, where the payload will then spend the following months raising its orbit into geosynchronous orbit, where it'll live at the 26-degree east slot, which will be above an area in the Middle East. It's launching atop Falcon 9 booster B1062-14, which signifies that it's the 14th flight of this specific booster, which has previously supported 2 GPS missions, Inspiration 4 and Axiom 1, the Nilesat 301 launch, OneWeb 17, and then 7 Starlink missions. And then today will be its 14th flight. Following liftoff, if all goes well today, the booster will attempt to land on SpaceX's autonomous drone ship. Just read the instructions, which was tugged into the Atlantic Ocean by Bob. And then Bob will also attempt to recover those 2 payload fairings that you can see in the middle of our screen right now, where the rocket gets wider. And we are not sure yet if those are flight proven or not, if I am correct.
Nice. Thanks for that overview. And Max, fancy some weather update from the Cape? Because it's quite windy, right?
Yes, sir. It is quite blustery. So the last time I checked the weather forecast from the 45th Space Wing over at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, they were still forecasting a 70% chance violation in the launch window tonight. But if my A1 or Mark 1 eyeballs are anything to go off of, the skies do seem to be thinning up a bit with the cloud layer. But as we've said a few times already, the wind is quite strong tonight. So I think that might be the biggest factor between a scrub or liftoff tonight.
I'll note that in the 45th Space Wing's latest weather forecast, their primary concerns were the cumulus cloud rule, surface electric field rule, and liftoff winds, like Max is saying. So that seems to still be the case.
Yeah, this launch really has not a great time so far with with good chances of launching. It seems like every day is like, yeah, about 20 to 30%, and that's it so far. Let's dive into questions here a bit. And the first question here is about the trajectory of this launch. What is the launch trajectory for this? Is this just due east, or where's this going out?
Yeah,
Trevor.
sure. So this launch is heading due east, like all missions to geostationary orbit. It turns out that the minimum inclination you can reach from a launch site is if you are heading due east, and then you can do a planes change later into flight. So launching due east, and then the satellite will then change its orbit later.
Perfect. So there you go. There's also the launch trajectory on the stream where you can see where it's going and also where the splashdown or the landing zone, not the splashdown zone, is. So yeah, we will hopefully see that today. I'm very much making sure that this launch remembers to launch today. Another question here that is most directed to Slick 40 is, how's the progress on the new crew launch tower going on Slick 40?
Yeah, we've seen some progress being done on it. Some at the foundation, we've seen some foundation work and so on. However, we haven't seen the actual arm or anything like that yet. So we don't really know how SpaceX is doing that. We don't know when they're planning on finishing or having the crew access arm operational, but they're certainly working toward it. So
there we go. Let's hope we see it soon to be appearing next to the rocket on future launches, which might happen soon actually. Like, it could be not that far away. Let's also thank some people here that are very generous with their membership giftings. We have Jim Carvett with one gifted Red Team membership. Thank you for that. Todd with 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you. John with 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you for that. We also have Superstaff with 10 Red Team membership. Yeah, I mean, so generous of all of you. Make sure if you are one of the lucky persons that received one of these gifted Red Team memberships, use these perks because you can get some cool behind-the-scenes photos, and also make sure to thank the person in chat if you receive them. That's always what we like to do here.
yeah, thank you everyone very much for support. It means a lot to all of us here.
Absolutely. And also Jim with the $10 in question. What are the 4 towers for the newbie? Wink, wink. Yeah, Trevor, do you want to have the pleasure to explain the 4 towers quickly?
Yeah, so those are the lightning protection system for the pad. So if any lightning is to strike, you obviously want to avoid lightning hitting the vehicle. So those 4 lightning towers create a Faraday cage around the vehicle so that lightning will strike them, keeping the pad and rocket safe. So very important on the Space Coast where there's a lot of severe weather.
That's like the I don't know, the ritual question.
You have to answer that question at least once on your very first stream, otherwise you're banned forever.
It's a good one though.
That's the you have to answer it. Let's see. How long is the launch window, Trevor?
I believe is the launch window today the same as for previous attempts?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so then 127 minutes. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that they hadn't slightly changed the window.
All good. And they already used some of that, right?
Correct. The launch window opened just about 2 hours before the planned liftoff, so they're most of the way through today's launch window. And
just to recap again, like with this, they're now locked in, right? Like how does Falcon 9 work there? Can they stay wiggle in the window?
With today's window, no, since they're so far into it. Because the Falcon 9 uses super chilled propellants, right? Its liquid oxygen goes a little bit below the boiling point, unlike other vehicles. Once they start fueling, they generally cannot delay the launch at all. The one exception to that is if they have a particularly long window and they ran into an abort scenario that didn't require some long turnaround, then they are able to recycle to T-minus 15 minutes. But since they don't have that time in the launch window today, it's an instantaneous launch window now.
There we go. So we either go in about 25 minutes or we don't go at all today. And
that is one of the nice things about Falcon 9 is once you're into fueling, you're not waiting around forever for a launch.
Yeah, that's true. Like, we know in 25 minutes we either see a rocket launching or I can go back to bed. That's the two alternatives here. Because it is 6 a.m. in Germany. Another more Red Team membership gifting here going on. Thank you so much at this early morning or late evening, depending on where you're watching from. Todd Johnson with another 10 Red Team memberships, and Super Staff coming in again here with 5 Red Team memberships, and also Invincible Turtle joining the PadRat memberships, and also Zeta joining PadRat members. Thank you all so much. This is really very generous. And also Future Martian here coming in with the $5 Trevor fan club. Congratulations, Trevor. You got your fan club on the first stream.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Future Martian. Means a lot.
Trevor's got groupies now.
Yep. Musical Wolves of the $5 and super chat question here. What's the most amount of weather violations chance SpaceX has ever had but still was able to launch? That's a good question. I have no idea about. Like, what's the least likely launch that's still launched?
I know they've launched a few times in 20-25% weather. I cannot answer for certain what the lowest is, though.
So this is like probably in the ballpark where they tried. And I know for 10% they often had the case where they didn't even bother going into fueling. I know that was the situation for some 10%ers where they're like, yep, nope, we are not doing this.
Yeah,
if I can rewind the clock.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Trevor.
No, I was just going to say, at some point it becomes not worth it to clear the range and lose a little bit of fuel that you lose on a launch attempt. So when the weather is bad enough, like Adrian was saying, they generally don't bother.
There we go. And Brady in the back channel also saying like CRS-14 was apparently very bad, so was DM2. I remember DM2 being having basically a very bad forecast, and
it did. Yes.
Yeah, nobody kind of expected it to launch, and for some reason it launched. I remember that as well.
It's also worth pointing out Salcom 1B in 2020 from Slick 40 as well. That was the very first polar launch from the East Coast, from Florida, and I want to say 50 odd years. And I believe the weather was less than 20% favorable, and they ran the clock right down to T0, and they found a window. So I've seen Falcon fly in some pretty bad weather.
So let's hope that's the day as well. We can only hope. And again, it looks pretty windy, but that doesn't mean always everything. So we will see how they look at. And also what's really cool here I want to point out is you can see right now how the rocket is being fueled, which is really cool to see, I think. Because you can see how the rocket gets frosty from the outside. So you can see the first stage being halfway there in terms of fueling here, which really looks cool. It's like kind of status bar.
Yeah, I always love watching Falcon get slowly whiter on these really sooty boosters.
That's a very good point, Trevor. Yeah, as the boosters fly, and of course they build up their soot level, they grow darker in color, and it's kind of weird when they're fully fueled in the pad because they look almost brand new because they're all white. But I think we are less than 2 minutes now away from Chris Bergen here in the back channel going less than 2 minutes to the best event, and what he's talking about is a very big 20-minute event. Adrian, I think that's your favorite one as well.
I love that event. It's one of them that signifies that we are way much progressing in the countdown. Trevor, do you want to explain what the T-20 event actually is?
Yeah, sure. So the second stage starts being fueled with the Rocket Propellant 1, also known as RP1, T-minus 35 minutes along with the first stage. But the strong back only has one set of fueling lines, so they end propellant loading or fueling on the second stage at T-minus 20 minutes, and then they start purging those lines to cool them down and clean them ahead of loading liquid oxygen onto the second stage, which starts at T-minus 16 minutes. So that's just them cleaning those lines, making sure they're all ready for second stage LOX load.
There we go. So then basically another step, and it should start in very basically should be able. There we go. I think we see it starting. There's your 20 minute went. We are progressing in the countdown. That's a good sign. A good sign. So, let's see. There's another question here about engine chill that I actually don't know. When do they chill down the upper stage Merlin 1D engine? I mean, they have the Merlin, the first stage Merlins in the timeline, but when do they chill down the second stage?
So the second stage Merlin chill down actually starts during first stage flight. You can hear the MVAC chill down call out. I want to say it's around T+1 minute, but I'm not 100% sure on the time, but it's during first stage flight.
There we go. So both of these have to be chilled. And Trevor, just to recap again for people that might be new, why do engines even need to be chilled?
Great question. Basically, liquid oxygen is very cold, and you don't want to run it through a engine that is at ambient temperature, because that will cause the liquid oxygen to instantly boil off. And that gas that is formed can actually severely damage the engine and damage the impellers and all of the other machinery inside. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen, protecting the engine, making it more reusable, making sure you don't have a hard start, etc. And if an engine does hard start, if you remember back to like SpaceX's suborbital test flight SN11, you can lead to a complete loss of vehicle. So it's very important to prevent that.
There we go. Mark Lamb, using our tips system, tips.nasaspaceflight.com, with a $10 tip and saying, love the coverage as always, thank you. Since Arabsat has scrubbed a few times, how much of the propellant does SpaceX recover from detanking? Some obviously boils off, but are they able to save most of it? Are they recovering like most of the RP? Because RP1 is relatively stable, right? They can...
Yeah, RP1's boiling point is, very high compared to liquid oxygen, so it doesn't really boil off. I'm not sure exactly how much they're able to recover, but I would assume it's the vast majority of it.
There we go. So LOX is more the one that boils off a bit more.
Yeah, its boiling point is significantly lower. An interesting fact, though, for RP1 is ahead of I know some launches, it could be all, ULA actually loads the RP1 ahead of time, like a week or so. And then on launch day, they're just loading with liquid oxygen.
There we go. It's always interesting to see these like fuel commodities and how they are provided and what is need to replenish them. We saw a lot of this discussion going on in the SLS windows because it was such a important part in the recycle timings. But this is, of course, a case for like every rocket. They need to replenish. They need to make sure they can supply their rocket, and it's a complicated topic, and I think it's more complicated than some people think.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. John Dupker, with the $100 super chat here. Thank you so much, John. That is really, really generous. Thank you so much. And that's wow. I'll do my best to answer the question here, because the question is how many Merlin 1D engines would be needed to equal the new Raptor 3. Raptor 3 now produces, 250 tons, right?
I think a bit more than that. I thought it was closer to 300 that Elon said.
Okay.
Like 269 or something like that. Yeah, Alex in the back channel says 270, and that Merlin 1D is 86, so a little bit more than 3.
3.14. That shows you really how powerful Raptor is, and it's not that big of an engine actually.
It's really not. It's much smaller than the RS-25, and it has much more thrust than an RS-25.
Raptor is really like a very impressive engine. Every time you notice how small it actually is and how much thrust is produced. And also, Alex pointing out it's 3.14, so kind of like P. It's pi.
Pi.
Yeah, in German it's P.
Also, I'll point out right now that we can see the T-minus 20-minute vent has significantly reduced, and we are inside T-minus 16 minutes, so stage 2 LOX load has begun.
There we go. And also the spacecraft is on internal power. So we have the spacecraft as well that is now operating on its own power. It's no longer like provided by ground lines and everything. It's operating like it is on its own. So that's also a good sign. They're progressing here. 15 minutes to liftoff. So let's hope this continues. I will quickly hit this because it's a shop question that maybe is a good thing to answer. When will the plushies arrive? We are working on them. We are getting constant updates on when they will arrive, and at this point, we still hope we make the original shipping timeline of mid-June. That's the current update for the plushies, and if something changes, we will update you. What are the complications of trying to return the second stage to Earth? So why is SpaceX not returning a second stage to Earth right now with Falcon 9, Trevor? Why are they not doing it for this rocket?
It's a great question. It comes down to the fact that the second stage, right, has to reach orbital velocity, which is very quick, and coming back from that requires a lot of heat shielding. So what SpaceX had decided is that Falcon 9 just was not the correct architecture to attempt second stage recovery. So if you remember back in the days, they actually had renders and had plans to attempt second stage recovery that would be propulsively landing back on like LZ1 and LZ2. However, they just realized that, you know, your center of mass is way too low with the engines. Not having fuel tanks, not having proper heat shielding, they don't really have any way to control it through re-entry. So there are just a whole bunch of reasons that made SpaceX cancel that program in favor of Starship.
There we go. It's the answer is it's complicated and has many reasons. So, but at least we are getting closer to a rocket that might reuse the second stage, which will be very cool to see once it happens and once it actually reaches second stage flight, because we are not there yet.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's a good old question. When will Starship launch again? I think we got some Elon tweets there, and we will make sure to update you all on this week's Starbase updates, which will go live, I think, Monday. So I think the teaser right now is about 2 months. So we'll see. But it was, I think, 2 months also 1 month ago, so we'll see how much we are getting closer in 1 month.
That's 2 months in Elon time, so potentially 4 to 6, if not more.
Let's see. Wolfram with the 5 Red Team memberships gifted here. Thank you so much, Wolfram. And also Mans on Mars with $1.99 super chat. Adrian, what is your go-to pre-broadcast meal? Based on the indication today, nothing. So I don't have a go-to meal. It's the problem is it's every time it's on different times of the day, so you never know what you eat before the broadcast. So yeah, it always changes. That's an interesting question. Could I fill my car with RP1? I have no idea if that would work on a diesel car. Probably not, right?
RP1 is just basically highly refined kerosene. So I'm sure you could tune it to work, but RP1 is quite expensive compared to diesel.
So in theory it could, but it would not be practical at all.
Depends on your definition of practical.
That's true. It would mean your extra performance. I hope. At least a bit. Max, do you want to give us a quick overview of how's the weather situation? Because it doesn't look promising right now for me.
Not great, Bob. No, it's still very very windy, and the cloud layer is, while it is still thinning, it is still quite low, quite thick, and moving quite fast, which is indicative of high wind levels, which is not favorable for Falcon because unfortunately Falcon is one of the rockets currently flying that is most vulnerable to both ground level winds or just winds all on its flight path. So we're hoping this calms down and that SpaceX can find a window tonight.
Let's hope for that, for sure. We are just 10 minutes away here from the liftoff of Falcon 9 carrying Arabsat. So let's hope that happens. Before that happens, I want to give you a quick information about our shop.nasaspaceflight.com, where we are performing a metal print cleanup. If you click on that banner at the site, it takes you to a site of metal prints that are being removed from the store. This is because we have a lot of metal prints and we want to make sure they are fresh. There still is a good mix of modern vehicles, maybe some older ones. So we are cleaning up some of them. Please check them out. This is your last chance to get all of these metal prints before they are gone on June 11th. So yeah, this is basically a cleanup of to make space for new amazing prints, especially of course Starship with a lot of prints. So yeah, make sure to check them out. Shop.nasaspaceflight.com and then click on the metal print last chance banner to see what will be gone on June 11th, and if you want to make sure to get one of these. And that concludes today's ad break. Another question here by Neil is, how does SpaceX keep the booster from falling off from the autonomous spaceport drone ship doing transport back on the shore? Trevor, how are they doing that?
They have two main ways of going about it. The main way is they have this little autonomous robot called the Octograbber, which rolls under the booster and then holds down to the same clamps where the launch clamps hold the booster, and it basically is just a very heavy weight that lowers the booster's center of mass that keeps it from sliding around. However, sometimes they're not able to use that, or before they had Octograbber, they actually have chains where they would weld these chains to the drone ship's deck, and then it would be chained down so it couldn't move. But if you look at the one launch where they couldn't do either of these, or one of the launches, Arabsat 6A, the Falcon Heavy mission, they actually landed the center core, but Octograbber wasn't configured yet for Falcon Heavy's center cores, so the booster tipped over on the drone ship and they weren't able to successfully recover it. So it is very important that they secure it to the deck.
The good old curse of the Falcon Heavy center cores, which are just, they're just cursed at this point. Tem asking, when is the next launch window if they don't launch? And I believe it's a 24-hour recycle, right? With way better weather tomorrow, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, tomorrow the weather is 85% go for launch.
So let's hope we don't need that, but if they need it, tomorrow is actually good chance of this going. So let's hope. So let's get some more questions because we are just 7 minutes away here. Trevor, what is happening now in the next 7 minutes up until liftoff? Like, what's the final steps here of Falcon 9?
Sure. So the major steps coming up are we're going to start engine chill on all 9 of the first stage engines, and then after that, the strongback will start to retract, which is where the strongback will very slightly tilt away from the vehicle, and then once the vehicle lifts off, it will fall the remaining distance to the not quite all the way to the ground. It goes to about 45 degrees, and then after that, the stage 1 and stage 2 LOX load completes, and then after that, the flight computer goes into startup, and the propellant tanks start pressurization for flight, which is basically when the vehicle takes over control of the countdown and increases the pressure in the tanks to make sure that they're rigid enough for flight. And then the launch director will verify that they're go for launch. And then at around 3 seconds before liftoff, all 9 Merlins will be commanded ignition. And if all 9 of those Merlins are healthy, then the Falcon 9 will lift off.
And the weathers go.
Hopefully.
Let's hope for that. I hope we can get to that point. John Ducker with another 5 Red Team membership gifted here. Wow, thank you so much. Really, like, it's a very generous stream so far. Also Super Steph here again with the 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much. And Mark with a store message here. Let's see what Mark got from the store. And it's one of the metal prints. Starship is so beautiful. Time to get a metal print before they're gone. Thank you so much, Mark, for using that. And yeah, enjoy that metal print. I have one of these at my wall, and I really love them. Quick question here, just before people join late. Where will the booster land, on a drone ship or on land?
It is landing on SpaceX's drone ship. Just read the instructions which will be stationed in the Atlantic Ocean.
There we go. And I believe at this point, Max, we will send you off to tracking duty, because it is time, right?
Time is getting near, and everyone cross your fingers, your toes, and everything else you got. That Falcon gets off the ground tonight. I will see you boys on the other side.
See you on the other side. There's a question here about the window where they are launching today. The question is, if this is going to GEO and will take a couple of months to get there, why launch at night? Is it because of Kennedy's busy schedule, when the satellite needs to deploy panels and lines? Like, what's the constraint of the window today?
That's a good question. I'm not sure we fully know the answer to how these launch windows are chosen, but it's going to be a combination of when the satellite wants to, or what orbit they want the satellite to be deployed in, if they want it deployed in sunlight or nighttime, and just a bunch of considerations like that. For these GEO launches, it is definitely less clear than, for the low Earth orbit launches where you have to target a specific plane or whatever. But there are still some considerations that need to be taken into account. But yeah, sorry for the not amazing answer, but there's so much for these GEO launches.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. Like, it's different factors, and some of them are known, some of them are don't. So I think that's a very fitting answer. Clever Girl here with the 5 Red Team memberships, and also Gunfox with the Flight Engineer member. That's one of the highest memberships we offer here, and thank you so much for that, Gunfox. That's really very generous support here. So thank you so much.
And with that, you get access to our Discord server, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really recommend for everybody to check that out. It's great fun there. I enjoy it so much, and I think that's evident by my, I think at this point 40,000 messages or so. So yeah, I really enjoy the membership Discord. It's a cool way to discuss space. Just a quick question here about the booster history before we get into the final crunch of the countdown. Eddie Pereira asking, how many launches did this booster already do?
Sure, so this booster has flown 13 times before, and today will be its 14th launch. It first supported 2 GPS missions, being the Space Vehicle 4 and Space Vehicle 5. And then it supported 2 crewed missions, actually. The Inspiration 4 mission with Jared Isaacman and the Axiom 1 mission. And then it supported Nilesat, OneWeb 17, and 7 Starlink missions. So it's had quite a history.
There we go. And also there is the infamous 2-minute vent. We are in the final stages of this countdown. Falcon 9 at this point is basically tanked and getting pressurized and getting ready. So we are now in the area that we didn't reach the last time. So we are now hoping for a go from the launch director, which will come in a very short matter. So, and also Falcon 9 at this point is in startup. So the launch computer of the Falcon 9 have taken over the countdown. At this point, an abort would either be validated if there's no go given and or done by Falcon 9 itself. And we have go for launch, which means this rocket will try to go to space today with the Arabsat 7B payload. Only 30 seconds to go here.
And one thing I'll note real quick is we did get confirmation that the fairings today are flying for an 8th and 9th time.
There we go. So also reused fairings here. They love reusability. T minus 10 seconds. Wait for the flash of the T-tab at the bottom of the rocket, which will mean engine ignition, which should happen at any second now. There we do the deluge. There's the T-tab. There is engine ignition,
Nice
and
liftoff.
there is liftoff of the Arabsat 7B mission carrying the satellite to geostationary orbit. Watch for the sound hitting us. There we go. Successful liftoff of Arabsat 7B. The rocket right now is flying through max Q, which is the moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket. Everything looks good from what we can tell right now. And the rocket has about 1 minute more remaining in its burn before we will see MECO, which is main engine cutoff, and then stage separation and SES-1, which is the start of the second engine at T plus 2 minutes and 44 seconds. So
That was an absolutely gorgeous liftoff through all those clouds.
yeah, like the orange light through the clouds, that looked amazing. That's like cool with Falcon 9. We have basically seen it launch in every condition so far, and getting these very special launches sometimes is really amazing.
Yeah, and we're coming up on MECO, like Adrian said, which is where all 9 engines will be shut down, and they will be shut down in pairs, which, if we're lucky enough, we'll be able to slightly see that. It's subtle, but apparent.
Let's hope we see that. Yeah, but sometimes you can see it. They didn't show it. Sometimes you can see it, I think, from the ground tracking shots, where they really you can see like the 2 engines going out each in pairs. And there we go. That's main engine cutoff and stage separation, and now we will see the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. There it is. Notice, by the way, this is the older design Merlin vacuum engines, not the stubby short one that has been used on a few previous flights now. This is the older big one.
And coming off of the engine was the ring stiffener, which is used to reduce vibrations in the engine bell during transportation and liftoff.
There we go. And we are now looking at 2 things at the same time. They're very unique for SpaceX here, which is first we of course look on the right side where the payload is making its way to geostationary transfer orbit. And there we have it. The payload is now exposed to the vacuum of space. The fairing has been removed, so yeah, it can now see space for the first time. And also the booster, it's making its way back to the ocean and try to land on the spaceport drone ship.
Yeah, so as is usual now, the booster will be conducting 2 burns. First, its re-entry burn, which is used to slightly slow down the vehicle, but mainly to use the exhaust as a heat shield. And then the second burn will be the landing burn, which will hopefully give a soft touchdown on just read the instructions.
There we go. That's let's hope it successfully performs that. And also the second stage will perform a burn until 8 minutes and 10 seconds, and then another burn for about 1 minute at 29 minutes, where it starts the second stage engine and brings the the payload up to GTO. So that's the plan for this mission. And next up, we are looking for the landing.
Yeah,
You
so
can see
if
the-
landing
okay.
is successful today, I'll note this will become SpaceX's fourth booster to land for, or third booster to land for its 14th time, third to fly, because Galaxy 31 and 32 expended a booster. So it will become B1062-15 upon landing.
Let's hope we see that. We can also see the booster now has reached apogee and starts to speed up again, and the altitude is starting to lower. So we are now at the point where the booster is falling down, and it will start to increase speed more and more rapidly up until the re-entry burn, where it will slow down. So yeah, we are well progressing here. The entry burn starts in about 1 minute, right?
Yep.
Nice. Also, if you
Yes,
see
that'll
some...
be
Oh, good.
that'll be igniting the center engine and then igniting the 2 sides. It'll be E1, E5, and E9. And then all 3 of those will shut down for the landing burn, which is just 1 engine.
There we go. And also, sometimes you see objects flying around the engines. Do not worry, that's most likely ice or even like some space debris parts that sometimes fly around. It's not UFOs. It's never UFOs. It's always ice. Neat fact by Alex in the back channel. This is the second time they launch 8 times in a calendar month. And they still have another one remaining on the 30th from Vandenberg. So there you go. Neat, like 8 times in a calendar month is kind of impressive. That's really a lot
It's
of
very
launches.
impressive. And
Yeah.
if this launch would have gone earlier, it's likely
go, by
that
the way, entry burn.
Starlink Group 6-4 would have also been able to launch in May, meaning they could have gotten up to 10 launches this month.
Almost. Also there, the entry burn, it's protecting the booster right now against the re-entry heat. As we say, it uses fire to protect against fire, and also slows down the booster rapidly. And now it's at about 5,800 kilometers an hour with an altitude of 40. Soon it will actually start to decrease its speed because now the atmosphere takes over, and you have more and more atmosphere. There you can see it. And the atmosphere is getting thicker and thicker, and that means the booster will start to brake using the denser atmosphere. Also, the grid fins are now being used because with the denser atmosphere, the grid fins get steering authority, and they can start to really steer this booster using these titanium grid fins.
Yeah, you can see stage 1's velocities decreasing rapidly. From
You
the
can really,
atmosphere.
this really visualizes great how thick the atmosphere is once you go like below 15 kilometers. It increases rapidly at some point. So yeah, we're looking for landing very soon. The landing burn startup is in about 20 seconds. So they're getting close to land this. And also the second stage, so far following a nominal trajectory, which is good. That's what we want. And is close to the first insertion here for Seco 1. So let's hope.
And there's Seco 1.
There we go. That's it. Now we're waiting for the callout, and there's the landing burn.
You can see the grid fins moving to keep control.
It's really cool to see. Watch for the drone ship to appear out of nowhere. There it is. And I think we have touchdown. Touchdown of the booster, which now levels up to level 15.
And that marks SpaceX's 195th successful booster landing and 121st successful consecutive booster landing.
Wow, that's just impressive. Also, nominal orbit insertion. It's the most important part of this. The payload so far is a nominal orbit. Of course, there's one more burn to go, but this is all great news. Max, do we have you back?
Yes, sir, you do.
How was it?
I was just happy to see the bright, welcoming orange glow come from 40 tonight. You know, with this weather, there's no guarantee that it's going to happen. So it wasn't the most spectacular in terms of like photography or just viewing, but she's off the pad and she's gone. So that's that's really all that matters for now.
There we go. Yeah, I feel like you're also glad you don't have to go out there late again. So,
I mean, I'm always happy to. Always happy to.
there we go.
Crazy that was already SpaceX's 37th launch of the year.
That's
incredible. We are in May.
It's not even June yet, and they're already at 37. That's incredible.
I had to check my calendar there to see what month we have. Also, we have the DAS favorite shot here, which is the MP launch pad. So that went also well. There's also the question here because SpaceX had the goal in the beginning to launch 100 times. I think so far they're barely on track, maybe slightly behind. But there's a video from earlier this year which we did if they reach 100 launches, and what goes into that. Make sure to check that out. I think it's a great video, and in general, check out our videos. I think they're really cool at this point, and I really like the information and quality they communicate. There we go.
Yeah, so just to add to what you were saying, Adrian, we're 40% of the way through the year and have had 36 launches. So they're a little bit behind their goal, but it's not as crazy as it may have seemed at one point.
I mean, they had, 60-something from the Cape last year or in general, and we all thought that number was absolutely lunacy back then meaning last year, and now they're already at 37, and it's not even June yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's
insane.
cool for us, right? It's just cool to see all of these launches. It's whoa! John Dobker with the $121 super chat. John, you did it earlier as well.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing support. Thank you so much, John. That's really, 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 really generous. And you also wow, and I also see $20 here from you again, and wow.
You also did 20 gifts, so thank you very much for your support. It means the world to us.
It goes a very long way for the whole team, so it really means a lot.
Yep. Thank you so much. NASA technology here with the 2000 South Korean won. And also an anonymous here with the store message and saying, thanks for all the memories. And let's see what they got from the store. It's another metal print. Remember, we have a metal print cleanup sale right now, where we remove some of the metal prints to make space for new ones. Check out shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Then we also have lots of gaming becoming a red team member here. Molly gifting 20 red team memberships. Thank you so much. The support today has been, out of this world, or at least in space. Thank you so much. And also Ryan with the $4.99 super chat here. Can we get a level up emoji or command? We will check that. If we like a level up for the booster, that might be a cool one. We'll check that. We'll check that and we'll see if we can make that happen. Thanks for that suggestion. And with that, Trevor, how was your first launch with us?
It was awesome. It was. I thought it was a really cool launch with it going through the clouds, but I imagine that made it less enjoyable for Max. But always a pleasure to be on.
Max, do you think it made it less enjoyable for you?
It's like a double-edged sort of a question. No, I mean, to be honest with you guys, and and everyone else listening, this really never gets old. I mean, I'm personally at just, I think this was actually launch number 90 in my book, and it never gets old. So whether it launches into clouds or a perfectly clear sky, it's always epic.
There we go. And
I'll
to
just note,
continue
by the
my-
way,
okay.
that despite having SECO 1 and first stage landing, the mission is not over yet. We are currently in a coast phase that which will go until T plus 29 minutes and 3 seconds, when the engine will ignite for 59 seconds, and then the payload will be deployed at T plus 37 minutes and 13 seconds.
There we go.
The mission is not quite over yet.
And make sure to check our social media, NASASpaceflight, and also SpaceX social media for further updates on this mission. In the back channel, to continue my sneaky outro here, we had Patrick, Space Pat, doing the buttons and the levers and making sure we get all of these images today, because we couldn't do that. It would look very bad if I, for example, tried to do that. So thank you so much, Patrick, for being with us at this late stage in the day. And I have been Adrian Bile, your host for today. And with that, I think we are through with today's launch broadcast, and we will see you all for the next launch, which might happen very, very soon. We'll see. See ya.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside speed off. Bring in speed off. It's orange!
145.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?